This is CBC Here and Now.
Bayvert moves to alert level 3 as a COVID-19 cluster grows.
And 2 cases discovered in a St. John's school.
Fall officially arrives tomorrow. Plenty of summer heat, though, across the province. We'll talk about how long that's going to last.
It was really overwhelming. So I think humbled really is the word I'd use tonight.
My new job is to be the MP for Coast to Bay, Central Notre Dame.
The Liberals steal one riding against the NDP.
But may have lost a riding in central Newfoundland to a Conservative newcomer.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. We begin with an unexpected COVID-19 update.
Part of the province is moving into alert level 3, and that change comes into effect just after midnight. And it's all due to a cluster of COVID cases in Central that keeps on growing. Public health officials say there are 16 new cases in the province today, and most of those, 14 cases, are in Central. Central Health says there is one person in hospital who's tested positive for COVID-19, but the important point, the patient was admitted for other health reasons. Public health officials say there are now 13 cases confirmed at a personal care home in Bayvert. Now, the 2 other cases are in the Eastern Health region connected to international travel. And there are also 8 new presumptive cases. Meanwhile, there are 2 cases of COVID-19 at a St. John's elementary school. 2 students at McDonald Drive Elementary have tested positive. The school board says public health is reaching out to potential contacts. Here Now's Mark Quinn has more.
The 2 new cases are here at this K-6 school in St. John's. COVID vaccines like this haven't been approved for children under the age of 12 in Canada. And that means the majority of students here are not vaccinated. It's a concern for both parents and teachers.
To be sending my child to school who is under the age of 12 right now without that protection would be extremely worrisome to me as a parent. And as an educator myself, looking at the kids in front of me, I would feel the same way, because it's more than just ensuring that they're safe in other ways around crossing the street and so on. It's safety just in terms of being in the buildings. So there's immense worry about teaching these kids at these ages.
Langdon says the teachers' union has faith in the province's public health officials, but he also says its members have always advocated for lifting restrictions slowly.
At the start of the school year, we were saying that, why pull everything back so early? Erring on the side of caution has been our constant message since day one. We've seen in recent days the reinstitution of masking in our schools, and we support that at this stage, given the fact that the variant has seeped its way into the province.
CBC News has been given 2 letters that were sent to parents yesterday and today. The English School District says public health officials have assured it the school can remain open with safety measures in place. It says people considered close contacts of these 2 latest cases have been advised to get tested and in some cases self-isolate. Public health officials say they hope vaccines will be approved for children under the age of 12 in early 2022. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the federal election ended in much the same way as it started, with a Liberal minority government. But there were a few surprises in this province, including what could be the first Conservative win in a decade. Here in Now's Peter Cowan has been keeping an eye on Coast to Bay's Central Notre Dame. Now, CBC still hasn't called that result yet, Peter, but what's the latest?
I know, Carolyn, this seems like a really drawn-out election night. And this wasn't a race that was on a lot of people's radar. The incumbent was Liberal Scott Simms, who won 6 elections over the last 17 years. But the results right now have him trailing the Conservatives. Let's take a look. Those results are close. Just 569 votes separates Conservative Clifford Small from Scott Simms, so close that the CBC Decision Desk can't say for sure who's going to win this. It's all going to come down to the 1,800 or so special ballots that were dropped off or mailed in. Today, Small is pretty confident that this result you see here is going to hold, in part because he thinks a lot of those ballots were rotational workers, and support for the oil and gas industry is something he heard a lot about on the campaign trail.
The oil and gas industry much to my surprise, was a really big issue. And in areas all throughout this riding, we have tremendous numbers of rotational workers involved in the oil and gas industry that have been displaced here. Part of the 5,500 jobs that we've lost since 2015 in our offshore oil and gas that are now traveling worldwide because that sector is flourishing in foreign waters.
So what's the incumbent Scott Sims saying? Well, last night when the Conservative lead was much bigger, he actually called Small and personally conceded to him. Now, speaking today, he says he's not convinced at that result and he wants to wait to see all the ballots counted before he speaks publicly. But even from his tone, you could tell his confidence that the results will change didn't seem very high. Now, when we do get those results, Sims will have to get more than 30% more votes in those mail-in ballots in order for him to take the lead. It is worth noting the last time the Conservatives won a seat in Newfoundland and Labrador, well, that was more than a decade ago. It was Peter Panashway in Labrador, and we'll likely have to now wait another day or two to find out that final result and see if Small was able to break that streak. Anthony?
Thank you, Peter. That's Peter Cowan live in our newsroom about the big election last night. Well, a big victory last night in St. John's East. That's Liberal candidate Joanne Thompson. She defeated New Democratic Party candidate Mary Shortle by about 3,000 votes. Thompson got 44% of the vote to Shortle's 35%. Now, St. John's East is the only riding in Newfoundland and Labrador in which an incumbent did not run.
Clearly, I've resonated with a number of people in the riding, and certainly for me, it's humbling, but it's also a privilege, and there's a lot of work that has to be done.
And whatever the outcome tomorrow, I think the people of St. John's East have chosen who they want to represent them, and we have to respect that.
Now, the Liberal wins in the other ridings, closer, in some cases much closer. The Liberals also won in the Avalon riding, Ken MacDonald taking it again with 49% of the vote, beating Conservative Matthew Chapman by over 5,000 votes. And in St. John's South Mount Pearl, Liberal Seamus O'Regan had 55% of the vote. That's 17,000 votes. New Democrat Ray Critch came second with just over 7,000 votes, and Conservative Steve Hodder came in with about 6,000 votes. In Labrador, a close one with Liberal Yvonne Jones, or so it appeared at certain parts of the night, who took the riding with 3,797 votes, defeating Conservative Shane Dumaresque and the NDP's Amy Norman. Now, the final two ridings were very close races. Liberal incumbent Churence Rogers in Bonavista, Burin Trinity won with 46% of the vote, about 1,500 votes. It was touch and go all night, and he beat Conservative Sharon Vokey. And in Long Range Mountains, voters were split, and another close race. Liberal incumbent Goody Hutchings took the riding once again by about 1,500 votes. That's almost the exact same number of votes garnered by the People's Party candidate. Conservative candidate Carol Anstey took 40% of the vote there.
In the three campaigns that I've had, Colleen, this one was a competition, right? We had 4 active candidates. We didn't have that in any of the other runs, and that's what democracy is all about. And isn't it great that 3 of them were women? And isn't it great that sadly there's only one winner? And but it's great to see people come out, and we live in a country where democracy rules.
2 men are planning to run from right here in St. John's all the way to their hometown of Trepassey.
It is going to be emotional, just thinking about Jamie and those that were affected by cancer.
I'm Jeremy Eaton, and I'll tell you why coming up on Here and Now.
Well, for those of you up in Labrador today, it felt like the middle of summer. Temperatures into the high 20s, 27.6 degrees in Happy Valley Goose Bay, broke that record from 1946. Cartwright, Makovic, all in those mid-20s, and then even through Mary's Harbour and Nain, your temperature sitting between 23 and 25 degrees, broke those records from the early 2000s. Now, a beautiful day really across the board. We saw those temperatures fairly nice across the island island as well. 21 in Corner Brook, 24 in Badger, 16 was the afternoon high in St. John's today, and we can thank a ridge of high pressure for that. Very little wind for the most part. We do have a couple of, or at least one wind warning for the northern peninsula right now, and that will continue through most of the night tonight, but you can see not a whole lot happening. But those temperatures, enjoy the heat while it's here now, because they're going to change certainly through the day tomorrow. We're going to start to see some of that colder air sink further south, and eventually as we get into Thursday as well for the big land. But some much nicer weather for the island. I'll get into all those details when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, tonight we're learning more about the two fishermen missing off the coast of Labrador. Mark Russell and Joey Jenkins were expected to return home on Friday night. As the RCMP search continues, friends of the two men say they're not giving up. The CBC's Heidi Adder is in Mary's Harbor and has this report.
This is where their boat, the Island Lady, would usually dock. Friends of Mark Russell and Joey Jenkins and the pair are different in personality, but the same at heart. Donovan Johnson says both men would do anything to help a friend, anyone in need.
It drives me crazy that I'm here and not out there, knowing that they are potentially still out there.
The group was searching until 4 o'clock this morning. They'd come back to take a short break, waiting to hear if they're needed once again. Volunteers, other fishers from Newfoundland, Labrador, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick have all come out to help in the search. The Coast Guard remains on the water while the RCMP coordinates. 3 aircrafts, 2 military, and 1 water bomber from the province were in the air today. And just as time and the days carry on, Johnson says the search will continue.
I'll never give up hope. They'll always be out there in my mind.
Boats continue to come in and out of the harbor, but the empty spot where the Island Lady would be remains. So for now, these 4 send out a hopeful toast for their lost friends. Heidi Adder, CBC News, Mary's Harbor.
Well, it's been a deadly couple of weeks on the roads. Since Saturday, 5 people have died in accidents across the province. 2 of those deaths involved off-road vehicles. Here now's Meg Roberts reports.
Sadly, it's becoming a familiar scene, but one that doesn't get any less heartbreaking. This morning, a head-on collision between an ATV and a car near Paddy's Pond. The 50-year-old man driving the ATV died at the scene. 2 people in the car were transported to hospital. Officers received a similar call this weekend. On Saturday, a collision between a motorcycle and dirt bike on Peacekeepers Way. The driver of the motorcycle was killed. The driver of the dirt bike taken to hospital. And last weekend, a 15-year-old illegally driving a side-by-side collided with another ATV, sending 2 people to hospital.
Certainly this week has been rough for a lot of people, our officers as well. So we're just asking the public to please, respect the rules of the road, drive within the speed limit, wear the safety equipment, your seatbelt. If you're on an all-terrain vehicle, wear your helmet.
The RCMP have recorded 6 ATV fatalities in the province so far this year. Last year, there were 17 ATV-related deaths, which prompted the RCMP to start a campaign, using unmarked police vehicles in communities to conduct surveillance of ATVs to then investigate and ticket riders. The RCMP says it believes people are paying attention to their message.
It could be you, it could be your child tomorrow that's receiving this bad news.
ATV safety advocate Rick Noseworthy says ATVs on roadways are dangerous. If you don't have a truck or trailer to transport your ATV to a trail or crown land, you're not being safe. Noseworthy says the worst part about these crashes, they're all completely preventable.
Let's hope something good comes out of some of this, and we don't know the people that we are reaching. Maybe today someone listens to this and they stop somebody from going, or say, boy, maybe I'll wear that helmet. So, that's the way that we got to operate. That's what gets us through it, one at a time.
The cause of the collision this morning near Paddy's Pond remains under investigation. Meg Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, a man has been charged with drug-impaired driving causing death after a fatal accident in Bayvert Junction. On Sunday afternoon, police say the man's pickup truck crossed over the center line and collided head-on with a small car. 2 people in that vehicle died at the scene, and 2 others were taken to hospital with serious injuries. A vehicle traveling behind that car went off the road as well. As the driver attempted to avoid that collision, that person was not injured injured in the crash. The RCMP says the driver of the pickup truck had minor injuries. He was taken to the Green Bay Community Health Center in Springdale for a blood sample before being charged. Well, in St. John's, an inmate in Her Majesty's Penitentiary has died. According to the Department of Justice and Public Safety, the man was found unresponsive in his cell last Thursday. The department says he was rushed to hospital where he died on Sunday. In a statement, the department says a review has begun to examine the circumstances surrounding that death, including the staff response, along with policies and procedures.
Well, once again, many more salmon at an aquaculture site are dead than was originally reported. Last week, a company on the south coast reported that more than 92,000 salmon had died. This due to complications brought on by Hurricane Larry. Well, now, Marine Harvest Atlantic Canada says the number of dead fish may be nearly 5 times that amount. Almost half the population of salmon at the site. It's known as the Gorge. Over 400,000 dead salmon. That's more than 1 million kilograms of rotting dead fish. The company says it lost power during Larry, which led to a sudden drop in low dissolved oxygen levels. The government issued a release this afternoon stating that 212,000 salmon had died, but the company says it expects that number to double by the time the cleanup is completed. Well, it's been tried before without success, but now the idea of developing the province's offshore natural gas industry is back in the spotlight. As Here Now's Terry Roberts reports, Conn River's Mi'kmaq First Nation is already on board.
It felt like a renewed sense of optimism at this year's oil and gas conference in St. John's. The first in-person conference in 2 years following an unprecedented period of pandemic-driven upheaval and bad news. And much of that lift came from this, the signing of a framework agreement. One that will see the Mi'kmaq First Nation in Conn River work to become an equity partner in an ambitious venture called LNG Newfoundland and Labrador. It's a massive undertaking, one that could become transformative for the Mi'kmaq Reserve and finally monetize a resource, natural gas, that for years has just been a byproduct of crude oil production.
We believe that the greatest thing Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador can do to help lower emissions on a global basis is to export massive quantities of LNG.
LNG Newfoundland and Labrador is a consortium of companies, including some familiar names from this province. With this man delivering today's sales pitch, Leo Power has deep political and business connections. He has high hopes for this project where others have failed.
Well, today is an entirely different world with respect to the receptivity towards low-carbon LNG exports.
The proposal involves building what's called a central gas hub in the shadow of the 4 producing oil fields in the Jeanne d'Arc Basin, a 600-kilometer subsea pipeline to Grassy Point in Placentia Bay, and constructing a special ship to produce liquefied natural gas, which would then be transported to growing markets in Europe. The plan is to sanction the project in 3 or 4 years and begin producing some 4 million tons of LNG annually by 2030.
We can produce among the cleanest LNG in the world.
Around the globe, natural gas is used to heat homes and is considered the cleanest burning of all fossil fuels. Countries like Germany are looking to diversify their supply.
The Germans are going to welcome production of LNG from Canada, a valued and trusted ally.
But there's a hitch. The capital cost is estimated at $10 billion.
I think the world is awash in capital for good, sensible, sustainable energy projects.
So how will the Mi'kmaq benefit as a preferred vendor for escort vessel contracts and badly needed, good-paying jobs?
We don't plan to put our community at any risk in this. None at all.
The chief says very little money will be risked in the beginning, but
moving forward, as we get more and more into this, I'm sure there's monies that we can put into this project to make it even better.
Natural gas is an exciting opportunity. LNG is an exciting opportunity.
With reconciliation as a backdrop, the Premier says he's happy to see an Indigenous group become a player in the offshore. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, it's expected to be a long, hilly and chilly run home to Trepassey. 2 good pals are going to lace up their sneakers tomorrow for a 150-kilometer fundraiser for cancer research.
Yes, after the recent loss of a dear friend, they found more meaning and more motivation. Here Now's Jeremy Eaton has that story.
For years, Charles Luther had wanted to do something to give back to those affected by cancer. During the pandemic, he came up with an idea.
That's the first thing that came to my mind. I wanted to run from St. John's to Trepassey, 147 kilometers and 3,600 meters of elevation, and wanted to raise money for Daffodil Place. There you go, buddy.
Luther called the endeavor running home. While he is no stranger to long runs, having completed a few ultra marathons, his partner Melvin Sutton, a little less so.
Charles asked me about it about 3 years ago, and I kept it in the back of my mind, and one night I just wrote him a message and asked him is he still interested, and he said he's 100%. So I said, okay, let's do something.
Are you a runner?
Not really, no.
But the two are dedicated and motivated, running about 100 kilometers a week.
My wife was supportive at 100%, just get training. If you're going to do it, be ready to do it, and which she's right, because you got to train for it.
Luther had planned this run in support of family and friends who've battled cancer. Then earlier this year, he lost a good buddy to multiple myeloma.
One of my close friends, a neighbor, Jamie Hines, he passed away this past June, and we're dedicating this run to Jamie, and we really miss him a lot. He has been one of our biggest supporters since I started this running home.
To date, the two have already raised more than $11,000, surpassing their 10 grand goal. The route is broken up into parts. They'll run about 60K the first day, around 50 the next, and end the journey with a 43-kilometer jaunt into Trepassey.
It is going to be emotional, just thinking about Jamie and those that were affected by cancer, and my wife and my kids, and everyone that has supported us, my family and friends, and I'll be thinking about them a lot.
The pair plan to leave early Wednesday morning and aim to finish running home on Friday. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, it's certainly starting to feel like fall out there. Don't worry, though, there's plenty of summer heat still left. I'll get into all those details when I come back.
for a look at the weather. And Ashley, it was a chilly start to the day for sure.
Yep. Temperatures dipped right across the board, actually, into the low single digits. So you may have woke up to some frost for sure. Let's take a look at some of those numbers this morning. 3 degrees in St. John's, actually was 2.5, but rounded up there at the airport. 2 degrees in Terra Nova, -1 in Badger. And those temperatures very different for Labrador. Happy Valley Goose Bay only went down to about 13 degrees. Makovic only 14. But look at what happened this afternoon. Temperatures soared. This is where we're sitting right now. In fact, 27 degrees, a beautiful evening right now for Happy Valley Goose Bay. Temperatures still pretty nice across the island as well. More like it's 16 degrees in Port aux Basques, 17 in Burgeo. And then we've got that temperature in and around 19 degrees for Twillingate right now. Now, for the Northern Peninsula, I mentioned this the wind warning rather for the Northern Peninsula east. Now, those winds are really going to ramp up this evening. We're looking at southwesterlies gusting about 80 kilometers per hour, but in the Canada Bay area, you'll more than likely see those gusts with those southwesterlies upwards of about 100 kilometers per hour. Now, that is going to continue for most of the night tonight. This is the future wind gust. You'll see those winds will ramp up as we get into the early morning hours tonight, even areas along the coast, and then maybe even towards the Green Bay, White Bay, or Bayvert Peninsula. You could see some gusts between 50, even 60 kilometers per hour. Some areas could see a little bit higher than that in some cases. And then as we head through the day tomorrow, those winds will eventually ease. We may see a few more gusts between 60 or 70 kilometers per hour through the afternoon, but overall, those winds right across the board actually will die down as we get into the evening hours, certainly into Thursday. Now, taking a look at the story for tonight, we're under a big ridge of high pressure. There's not a whole lot happening with that. That is why those winds were actually fairly light for most of the afternoon today. But as that ridge starts to sink south, that's when we're going to see those winds ramp up. But overall tonight, fairly quiet. We're looking at some cloud cover, at least some partly cloudy skies tonight for parts of the Big Land. Otherwise, just some increasing cloud as the morning rolls around for the west coast. But temperatures much nicer tonight. Into the teens, low teens though, about 11 to 14 degrees across the island. So a good 10 degrees or 11 degrees warmer than what you were seeing this morning when you walked out the door. Winds will be out of the west about 20 to 40 kilometers per hour, but look at that beautiful night. Happy Valley Goose Bay only going down to about 17 degrees tonight, but that is where we're going to see those stronger winds. The winds will be gusting anywhere about 50 to 60 kilometers per hour, certainly towards Lab West through the overnight. Tomorrow, that ridge of high pressure is still very much in place. We are going to start to see some cloud cover move in through the day, and then that chance of showers, though, for Labrador, mainly Lab West. A few showers possible through central and coastal Labrador as well. We may see a few showers develop along the west coast, but overall should just see some increasing cloud as the day goes on. And then some showers will head towards the west, the southwest, as we get into the early morning hours on Thursday. Temperatures tomorrow, even though the first day of fall arrives tomorrow at about 4:51 Newfoundland time, we're looking at temperature around 22 degrees. This is well above where we should be sitting this time of year. Winds a little bit breezy, 20 to 40 kilometers per hour, but as you head towards Clarenville, 24 degrees, 25 in Gander. We may even see some areas that see temperatures just a few degrees warmer than that, and then winds out of the southwest and the west coast as well. However, 21 to 24 degrees. Now, more of a mix of sun and cloud as the afternoon develops. Like I said, few spits of rain possible. Not going to rule that one out, but about 19 degrees for St. Anthony. Temperatures in the morning going to be absolutely gorgeous for Cartwright and Mary's Harbor. But as the day goes on, as we start to see some of that colder air, which is already there, Nain and Labrador City at about 15 degrees, these temperatures will be dipping down into the single digits as the day goes on tomorrow. So certainly enjoy the weather while we have it, but I'll get into the long range forecast, tell you how long the heat will stick around when I come back.
Well, she is the newest Liberal MP from this province. First-time candidate Joanne Thompson took back the riding of St. John's East from the NDP last night. Thompson is former executive director of the Gathering Place, and our Terry Roberts was there just after midnight when her win was announced.
Oh my goodness, excited, excited, and really humbled. I said it when I spoke a few minutes ago. I knew that we need to pull volunteers together, but this morning there was almost 100 volunteers who were up before 5 a.m. to start to drop off cards. That is overwhelming. The support that we found in the community when we went door to door was really overwhelming. So I think humbled really is the word I'd use tonight.
So who is Joanne Thompson, and what makes you think you can be a good MP?
So I'm someone who has had a number of positions in my life. I've shown that I am passionate, I am able to pull people together, I'm able to do what often is seen to be quite difficult to do in terms of really pulling groups together, governments, the people who need to be at a table to make the decisions, but also to get the job done. And I'm here for that reason. And certainly the people of St. John's East can expect that I will work tirelessly on the issues and the concerns of the riding.
Is this something you've wanted to do for a long time, enter public spotlight like this?
No, it's not. No, I came forward because I believe firmly that this is a time in Newfoundland and Labrador's history when we can use that competitive advantage of a group of people who are able to come together in difficult times, but also with bright minds and innovative thinking, and we can be leaders as we transition to green technologies. But we need to also be able to continue our fight against COVID-19, but understand that we will do fabulous things when we work together.
So Nick Whalen had Trudeau mania. I mean, there was things like that put him over the top. This has not been typically a Liberal riding. So how were you able to do this?
I think St. John's East is a riding that understands at this point in time that we can do so much more if we are at the table and working together. I think, and I was rather pleased when I went door to door to understand that people knew me from other positions that I've had, and they know my track record. They know that I will get a job done, that I am here with an understanding that this is public service, and I take that very seriously. And so I clearly, I've resonated with a number of people in the riding, and certainly for me, it's humbling, but it's also a privilege, and there's a lot of work that has to be done.
I think in a way what we're seeing is just a little bit of a balancing out. That a party that should be able to do better here is actually sort of starting to find a bit of a foothold.
The Liberals won the most seats, but the Conservative Party saw a boost in popularity in some parts of the province on election night. Coming up, political scientist Kelly Bladuc will give us his take. While the number of Liberal MPs elected in this province has not changed, election night was still a nail-biter for most candidates. Joining me now to talk more about the results is MUN political scientist Kelly Bladuke. So this is a bit of an unusual election because we're still waiting for final vote tallies, but the Conservatives definitely gave the Liberals a run for their money last night in this province. Can we start with Coast of Bay's Central Notre Dame? It looks like longtime Liberal incumbent Scott Simms has lost to Conservative newcomer Clifford Small. I don't know about you, Kelly, but I didn't hear any talk about his seat being in trouble in the lead up to Election Day. It really seemed to fly under the radar there. What do you think happened?
Well, I think the Conservatives did make a concerted effort. And I think that, especially looking at Scott Simms' riding specifically, I think there is actually a sort of a stronger Conservative strain there. And we even saw this when Scott had to sort of step out from under the party banner a while back because he opposed something that the Liberals were doing, and he was punished for it. Sometimes those things can be successful because the MP kind of makes a name for themselves as independent, kind of endears themselves to the constituency. But it could also be that a lot of people started looking at that and saying, well, at the end of the day, I don't really support the Trudeau Liberals. And it could be that that's really what ultimately happened here, that a lot of voters in that constituency felt that they were simply more comfortable with Clifford Small and with the Conservatives.
Now, it seems the pandemic has touched all aspects of this election, and we've been reporting that the northern part of that riding, Coast of Bay's Central Notre Dame, is the least vaccinated population on the island at 67%. Do you think that the apparent vaccine hesitancy in that area could have influenced the vote?
Yeah, I think it could be that. And also just going back and thinking of perhaps the number of people also who are employed or in some way connected to other parts of the country like Alberta.
Rotational workers, that sort of thing, yeah.
If they weren't seeing big outbreaks and if they weren't, if there's more of a hesitancy there, they may, again, sort of along the same lines of what I was saying before, they may not feel like Justin Trudeau and the Liberals are really speaking for or representing their viewpoints. And this would make a sort of logical sense that they would begin to move sort of to the more right-leaning parties that have been a little more lenient on issues like vaccination or vaccination passports or who needs to be vaccinated, and that they would find more comfort with that party.
Now, one riding everyone was watching last night was St. John's East. The Liberals managed to take that one back. What did you make of that Liberal win?
Well, I always knew it was a reasonable possibility. Of course, the Liberals also won that riding in 2015, right? So it was only just recently that the NDP took it back. And beyond that, the Liberal machine, both provincially and federally, is reasonably strong in the area. So, I did hear that there was a lot of people working for the Liberals who were kind of descending upon that particular constituency. And so as much as I wasn't sure they'd be able to pull it off, it's not as big of a surprise. They have done well here before, and they also have the provincial Liberals who are quite robust here.
Yeah, this province has been, as a whole, has been pretty solidly Liberal for quite a while, but the Conservatives captured a lot of the vote last night. There were also tight races in Long Range Mountains and Bonavista Buren Trinity. Does that tell you anything about the headspace of voters this time around?
Well, I think there's always been a bit more sort of Conservative support in the province that hasn't really been able to manifest itself pretty much since the Danny Williams days. And you might recall the Anything But Conservative campaign and that period. But it did always kind of seem a little bit odd that given how many people are actually willing to vote progressive Conservative provincially or just the general ideological disposition of a lot of people in the province, that the Conservatives had such a hard time doing well here. So I think in a way what we're seeing is just a little bit of a balancing out. That a party that should be able to do better here is actually sort of starting to find a bit of a foothold, making the effort it needs. And that maybe people's collective memories of the reasons why they don't vote Conservative are starting to kind of fade a little bit. Stephen Harper isn't the leader of that party anymore, etc. So I think that's actually kind of part of it. I think we could also look quickly, again, at the pandemic, at the way that people's lives have changed and where people's headspace is at. And it's quite possible that as Trudeau has has been prime minister now for a while. We've seen him in action. We've kind of gotten a sense of whether we like him or not, that the shine is kind of worn off a little bit too. And so people may simply just not feel as comfortable with the direction he's going. People may not have quite the same sort of progressive slant that Trudeau himself has.
All right, Kelly Bladuke, thank you so much for your thoughts on all this.
No problem. Thank you.
Well, it's been a decade since the Conservatives won a seat in Newfoundland and Labrador, but that may have changed last night.
Clifford Small has an almost 600-vote lead over Liberal Scott Sims, so it all comes down to the 2,000 special ballots that are now being counted.
Yeah, Small is pretty confident he'll be the new MP for Costa Bay Central Notre Dame. He spoke with Here and Now's Peter Cowan.
I think a lot of people were surprised by the result that we all woke up to this morning. How surprised were you that you were in the lead against what, has been the longest serving MP, Scott Sims?
I wasn't all that surprised based on the feedback that I was receiving at the doors, and I knocked approximately 10,000 doors myself, in addition to the phone calling that I'd done. So I was expecting a result similar to what we received.
So we are still waiting for the mail-in ballots to be counted. How confident are you that you will still be ahead when all the votes are finally counted?
I'm fairly confident because a lot of those ballots are from, what should I say, from people that I think will be strong supporters of our campaign.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you know, rotational workers and many of our campaign team, friends, family, there's an enormous amount of people that we pushed out to the early ballots.
The last time we saw a Conservative MP elected in Newfoundland and Labrador was 10 years ago. You were obviously, did the best out of any of the Conservative candidates who were running, but a lot of them really closed the gap with the Liberals in a lot of other ridings. What do you think this says about the popularity of the Conservatives now after a long period of rather unpopularity?
I think we've gained a lot in popularity. I think that our leader's message really resonated, especially in these rural parts of Newfoundland and Labrador, as you can see from the results. And I can see it. I can see the support growing as we go forward, because our leader is so relatable to the people of this province. In fact, he served with many people from Newfoundland and Labrador in his military career. And in fact, right here in Gander, he's have several friends that he's served with, and in fact, that he went to boot camp with.
Well, we're all going to keep an eye on those results as we start to see them count those mail-in ballots. And I appreciate you taking some time and sharing your thoughts with me today.
Hey, thanks for giving me the opportunity. And once again, I'd like to thank my opponent, Mr. Scott Sims, for running such a great, clean, honest campaign. And I'd like to thank the electorate in Costa Bay's Central Notre Dame for putting their trust in me and electing me to be their voice and to be the voice for Newfoundland and Labrador in opposition in Ottawa.
Now, as Mr. Small and Peter were discussing, votes are still being counted in many ridings, but we already know the Liberals will form a minority government, and yet all the parties, Liberals included, fell short of their own expectations. CBC's Marina von Stackelberg reports.
Selfies, autographs, and in a pandemic, elbow bumps. Justin Trudeau hit up a subway station this morning in Montreal to celebrate his win, but the Liberal leader didn't get what he wanted. He called the election 5 weeks ago, hoping for a majority government. But all of the parties only lost or gained a seat or two, with an election price tag of $600 million.
I hear you when you say that you just want to get back to the things you love, not worry about this pandemic or about an election.
Conservative leader Erin O'Toole didn't get what he wanted either. He failed to pick up seats in southern Ontario, despite pitching himself as a more moderate Conservative who is from the area. But the Conservatives did unseat 2 Liberal cabinet ministers and won the popular vote.
While the final numbers are still being tabulated, in about 30 ridings, we came within 2,000 votes of the Liberals. We are building towards victory next time.
Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet did not make any significant gains, but he did hold on to his seats.
Do you feel secure in your leadership with that result?
Yes.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh has consistently polled as the most liked leader, but that affection didn't result in more voter support, despite it being the New Democrats' most expensive campaign.
I'm really proud that we were able to use the resources and time that we had to hear from people, and more importantly, to share their stories. The fact that we were able to take a national campaign and highlight the plight of a lot of people.
2 leaders failed to win in the ridings that they ran in. Maxime Bernier and his People's Party failed to get a seat in the House of Commons. Meanwhile, Annamie Paul, the leader of the Green Party, came in 4th in her Toronto riding, The Greens did elect their first MP in Ontario. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
This weekend, CBC Television and CBC Gem will air a new Absolutely Canadian documentary all about Newfoundland and Labrador's growing tech sector.
Yes, it's called Silicon Island and was directed by Christopher Richardson. Here's a look.
My name is Emily Bland. I'm the CDO of Succeed.
I'm Purvi.
Hi, I'm Nikita.
We are the co-founders of Nucleic Biologics.
It's Isaac Adejuan, and I'm the CEO and founder at Matrix Flow.
If you live in Toronto, you're one of 5,000 startups. I think the greatest resource in Newfoundland and Labrador is in the people.
We don't just talk the talk. Here at Succeed, we walk the walk.
You're not a number here.
I actually engaged with about 4,000 investors in 44 days.
The first thing I told after coming here is, as soon as we are done with my PhD, we are moving out of this province. You see the 2 whales here? Oh, so many. So that's when we decided, no, we are not going to leave this rock.
Here's it all in here.
So this is the time when I don't talk about business.
Right.
Time for a look at the long range, and you mentioned earlier that tomorrow is the first day of fall, and I realize that means today's the last day of summer.
Yes, it is.
The last full day of summer.
Yes, it is,
Yeah.
but don't get too worried about that because
some nice temperatures though coming.
Still some beautiful temperatures. Tomorrow is going to be absolutely beautiful for most of the island. Let's take a look at those temperatures just one more time. 22 degrees. Carolyn, you'll like that. Through the afternoon with some sunshine. The winds will be a little bit brisk though, 20 to 40 kilometers per hour at times out of the west. That's why we're going to see some of those warmer temperatures. And then towards the central areas, Grand Falls, Windsor, 25 degrees, 24 in Corner Brook, a little bit cooler for Port aux Basques, about 17 degrees is your daytime high tomorrow. And then note these temperatures up across Labrador, Nain and Lab City. Your temperatures, this will be your daytime highs, and then they're going to drop like a rock as the day goes on, certainly through the afternoon, back down to the single digits. And then for central and southeastern Labrador, you're going to see that drop later on in the afternoon, but your temperatures will drop to the teens in that time period. So as we head through the day on Thursday, that chance of showers that will work its way across Labrador tomorrow will start to affect, looks like, the northern peninsula as we get into Thursday afternoon. Otherwise, going to stay with the mix of sun and cloud through the afternoon. Those showers will work their way further south and east as we get into Friday morning with the slight chance of showers rolling through. Otherwise, a quiet start to Friday as well. May see a few showers here and there for the southwest and then western portions of Labrador, but overall we're looking at a fairly quiet week, really, for the most part. Temperatures into Thursday going to stay in the 20s, about 20 degrees for St. John's, Gander, 23 degrees for Corner Brook, but then you'll see these cooler temperatures start to creep a little bit further south along the Straits, St. Anthony. Now you're looking at temperatures barely reaching the double digits, about 11 degrees as the daytime highs. And then as we get into Friday, that's when we're going to start to see that cooler air move further south. But again, the sunshine will stick around. So even though we're going to see temperatures around 12 degrees, it's still going to feel beautiful. 19 degrees towards Corner Brook to start off the weekend. And then single digit highs up across Nain. 9, 10, 11 degrees will be the story across the Big Land. Now, once we get into Friday, rather into Saturday, temperatures will stay in the teens, but then by Sunday, we're going to start to see those temperatures bump back up again. At this point, looking at a mix of sun and cloud for Saturday, but like I said, maybe, which I didn't show there, but Thursday night's when we'll see that slight chance of showers, but otherwise, very quiet weather through the week as we head towards central and western Labrador. A little bit more unsettled towards the weekend, still looking like that, but back up into the 20 to 23 degree range as we get into Sunday. And then for Labrador, you'll start to see your temperatures rise as well as you get into Sunday, about 18 degrees. For eastern Labrador, a little cooler for the west, but your overnight lows will be back into those double digits as well. Had to share this photo, the sunset in Calls Harbour. Kevin shared that photo. If you have any weather photos to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
You just need some palm trees in there.
I know, it does look tropical, doesn't it?
Hawaii.
Look warm.
It's beautiful.
Very nice.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
And I was happy until Carolyn Stokes reminded me that the death of summer is upon us, which
It just hit me. I was like, oh, it's the last day of summer. But at least we have nice temperatures going into fall.
and the leaves will start their thing.
That's what I'm looking forward to.
Lots of positives
Yeah.
for fall. Yeah.
See you tomorrow.
Good night.
Good night.